young, I'm 24, you 22, and you ain't willing to build right now. You think right now I deserve to be able to sit on my ass. I ain't got no kids, right? I ain't got nothing going on, but because I'm a woman, I deserve to not have to do nothing except for wash some dishes. No, that's not how that works. You got to be willing to build with somebody, and you got to be willing to accept that if you just now get into that mindset at 35, you still got to build. At 45, you still got to build. You're not gonna walk into some man's situation and just have him take you out of the responsibility of working or providing. That's just not how that's gonna work. You ain't gonna qualify for it.
Okay, so I think that
Welcome back to Money, Marriage, and Media. Today we are looking at She Critique. Let's go ahead and get this going. And don't forget, we're looking for 1,000 subscribers as the goal.
I talk to a lot of white women, but the white men that I have spoken to say there's no 50, like most, they're not paying 50-50.
Title of this is There's No 50-50 in Relationships. Initial thoughts, I disagree. Based on the premise that 50-50 is not about money. And I know that's instantly what most people think about today. But up until a couple of years ago, 50-50 was about responsibilities. Like you and your spouse divide up the responsibilities in the relationship so that it is balanced. Because again, relationships are about balance. Today we focus too much on finances, which I find funny because in my previous career, it told me that most people get that stuff wrong anyway. So, yeah, let's go.
Now, they do contribute, but it's not 50%. Because my question was, I was on a white panel, and I got chewed up, especially in the comments, when I said, well, most men aren't dating 50, and they came for my ass. Most men aren't paying over 50, and they came for my ass. I was like, excuse me, I'm sorry. I come from a different culture. My apologies. Like they just, because I went to the white manosphere. And undoubtedly, that is not their situation. They're like, hell no, we pay more than that, blah, 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 blah. And when I tell you the most to the point where I had to turn it was ridiculous. They came for me. So I understand that we may think that, but unless you know white people like that and you live in their household, and I know some white people, I think that we like to sit here and think what white people do, and we don't be knowing what white people do.
But see, this is something, and I'm not bashing you for this. This is something that I notice all too often is that we listen with our feelings, right? We respond with our feelings. Did you hear what I actually said? I didn't say nothing about 50-50. I said they work. That's the argument that we have been making, that because black women
about
work.
Finances. You didn't mention either or. You didn't specify either or. You just said, why don't we have this? And so
right, because they work.
A part of the entire conversation, which also included income. Now, if you want to clarify, then now that you're clarifying,
they work, and that's been the whole argument that's been made here, is that because sisters work, they can buy and they can do this, they can do that. Look, every Asian women work. Mexican women work. The last job I had, I was bouncing from warehouse.
You know what I find interesting is the fact that, there's always this argument about, women make in particular about men aren't traditional anymore and the guy should be paying all the bills. The funny thing is that traditionally, especially for black people, women have always worked. There was no time in our history, specifically in the U.S., where women stayed home. Even during like older, 50 years ago, there was jobs that were specifically for women. And I'm trying to figure out how we just forgot about that. It's like women, for the majority of our history, women have been nurses, waitresses, secretaries. These jobs have been predominantly women, based on women. So housekeepers, babysitters, nannies, these roles were traditionally filled by women. So I don't know where we get this idea that, the man worked and paid all the bills and why the woman just stayed home and took care of the kids. That's not our history. So I never understood that.
The warehouse in Joliet, which is quote unquote a suburb of Chicago. Mm-hmm. Guess what? The Mexican women run them warehouses. Mm-hmm. They on the forklifts. They lifting the box. Everywhere. They doing everything everybody else doing.
But
I
see,
think
that's
that
true.
the guy in the
Yeah.
video.
How you
did
gonna
not
tell me
say-
that ain't true?
Well,
the guy,
Ugly.
listen, I know what Logic is saying, but the guy in the video did not say that was not when we put the video of the original question. He said
Yeah.
he understands she's bringing in money. That was the
Yeah.
original format.
Yeah.
It's not her. He just doesn't use her money. Do what
Right.
you do, but I'm not taking that. This is not a woman-led household. I'm still going to be this, and this. You can have a big, he said I can $1 billion, not even a million, $1 billion. And guess what? I'm not going to ask her for a dime of that money because I'm the man in this house.
So
And
let me add something to that real quick.
He said, I'm just telling you what the man said.
I want to add something to that because I can speak on that right there. So I've been taking care of my family since day one, and I've been married for 21 years, right? So my sons are now 20 and 18 years old,
How
getting ready to be
old is he?
21 and 19. And it's at a point right now where my wife works, she goes, works, having the hours that she wants to, whatever. And whatever my wife made, there is not even a question. I don't go, okay, wait, well, since you made this much, then I'm still holding everything down. I don't care how much she's bringing in. I don't care. I'm still taking care of my house. I'm still doing the things that I was doing for the 21 years and going to continue to do it. So if she end up landing to somewhere, she's like, okay, well, ooh, now I'm doing this now and I'm making this much money. I'm still not going to sit there and say, well, because you're making that much, I can kind of pull back. No, I'm still taking care of my house and taking care of everything that I did before.
Right,
Well,
but see the
to
thing
Dan-
about
to
real quick
Shan's
Logic. I'm gonna be
point-
quiet real
To
quick. Let me
Shan's
just get
point
this off because
earlier,
I don't want to
I think
forget it.
it's just it's a different of perspectives in preference. At the end of the day,
MRM, that is obviously that situation is working for him. Most women are not going to do that for average men, and that's just a preference, right? And what I mean by that is that most women are looking for they would rather use their income to add comforts to life. So let's say this is a situation where in his situation, I think he works in the medical field. Let's say he's supporting his household. Well, most women are going to come along and say, well, I work too, so we need to add to this lifestyle. If that's what's working for you, I'm not gonna knock it because, like I've said this before, the marriage rates are too low in our community for us to be, saying that, well, no, that can't work. Look, if y'all married, then if that's working for y'all, then y'all need to rock with that. I make no bones about that. I think what's interesting is that a lot of times we conflate being the breadwinner with being head of the household. Making money doesn't make you a good leader. Leadership skills make you a good leader. So I think that's where a lot of us get conflated, and we for whatever reason, it gets lost in translation. I mean, I think I think in this country specifically, we focus too much on, we put too much emphasis on income. Because like I said, my previous career, I worked in financial services. Most people don't know what to do with their money anyway. That's why most people are living paycheck to paycheck, no matter their income level. You'd be surprised how many high earners I sat down with, and they broke because they live at paycheck to paycheck because they don't know what to do with their money. So, I mean, that's why I never put much stock in salary. That's great, man. You make $150,000 a year. Fantastic. Why are you living paycheck to paycheck? Oh, well, I got to maintain. I went and got this and bought that. We upgraded the house. Why? Because you're trying to maintain a lifestyle. And you're living a lifestyle that you literally cannot afford. You can dance around that all you want to, but you can only do that for so long before something happens. You lose a job, bad streak of bad luck or something happens, and all of a sudden now you in the hole. It's not a good look. We got to do better with. That's one of the holes in our. That's one of the problems that we have to work out, especially if we want to start rebuilding a community. Eventually, we're gonna have to address it, but that's a whole nother high level conversation about what that's later. We can't focus on that stuff now because there needs to be some foundations first, and we're just not there. So that'll probably be a much later video where we cover that.
you have men who desire to fulfill that role in a woman's life, and then you have men that don't. And so for the women, choose wisely.
See, because I look at it like I'm not just doing it for her. I mean, me taking care of my home.
But that's something that's fulfilling for you. Like that's what you choose to do. You know, I feel like whether it was your wife or another woman who could have potentially been your wife, that's the role that you desire to fulfill in your household and in your marriage. Or am I wrong?
And look,
No, you're right. And wait, I want
to.
to and actually to Logic's point, what he made early, he actually answered the question right from the jump when he said, I had it written down right. Okay, he said at the beginning when Logic said, he said today's marriages seem to be based off of a partnership more than it is actually a relationship. And I totally get that now. I understand, like I know we threw it all in there and say, well, you know, the money and everything shouldn't have nothing to do with the dynamics of the relationship. But I get it. See, it shouldn't have nothing to do with the dynamics of the relationship. But the reality of it is, like he said, a lot of them are based off of a partnership more than is a relationship.
But see, I'm gonna say this though. I'm gonna say this. This is what I'm gonna give you an example of tribal, right? And Scam likely was in the military too, so he can vouch for it, right? In the military, an overwhelming majority of the women, guess what? Do not work.
I mean,
They
why?
do not work.
Military spouses?
Yes, military spouses. An overwhelming majority of them do not work. Their primary responsibility is the kids. So now, like I said, maybe this is my tribe, right? Right now, my job that I work with now, you know what wives do? Bring sandwiches. Good ass sandwiches, man. The croissant bread, like some, I don't know what kind of mayonnaise in it. It got mayonnaise that not mayonnaise,
Thousand Island.
mustard, and it got these big chunks and stuff in it. It's delicious, right? You need to try it. So, but my point I'm making is that guess what? It's a tribal thing. I'm totally agree. It's a tribal thing. The eras that I lived in my life, military, and then working on the government side, a majority of the DA civilians' wives don't work. A majority, I say. And then guess what? They're perfectly fine. And you know why? They have better outcomes. It's because their primary role is the kids. So you cannot eliminate kids when you're dealing with relationships. Their primary job of that woman is the kids. And you know what? For a long time, I didn't understand that dynamics until my kids lived with me in Korea and Hawaii, right? I was wore the fuck out. When I tell you, for any dude to say that being a full-time mom is not a full-time job, you need to, I ain't gonna cuss. You need a reality check.
Yeah.
Because that is a full-time job. That was the most stressful time in my life because I had to work full-time and I had to be a full-time dad and mom.
Yep.
I had to do homework. I had to get up and go to PT in the morning. I had to come back and, bro.
You know, this is why I say that there can only be one breadwinner in the house. Whoever's making the most money, they're going to be the breadwinner. But again, remember what I also said, that being the breadwinner does not make you the leader. Leadership skills make you the leader. So how does that equation get balanced? Okay, well, let's think about this for a second. The breadwinner tends to work, they tend to have a career where they're going to work a lot of hours. That means that this person is going to be out of the home more. Now, you and your spouse have to decide who that's going to be. I don't care if it's man or woman. It doesn't matter because, like I said, the marriage rates are too low for us to be trying to figure out one way of doing this, right? But the other person, the chances, they just need to have a job. Now, you don't get off scot-free because that's the whole thing about why stay-at-home dads get so much flack. Because, no, you still need to work, right? But you're not, the whoever is not the breadwinner, they're not going to be able to have a career because whoever is not the breadwinner, their focus is family. That's exactly what Logic is talking about because they have to be flexible. This is why the breadwinner has a career because their main focus is building that career because they need to bring in the majority of the money. Now, in most cases, we're not going to walk away from tradition here because in most cases, most men and women would prefer a traditional relationship where the guy is the breadwinner. Right. I think the problem comes in is that times are changing to where it is possible the woman could be the breadwinner. I think that the reason why it doesn't work out as much is because most women are not willing to give up on traditional roles. See, I'm going to go off and gain all this education and get a career, but I still want the guy to be traditional. Well, traditional men aren't attracted to that. They're not attracted to that lifestyle. Well, that's why this whole power couple thing starts to fall apart, because if both of you are out there getting it, who's taking care of the home? Like when your kids get sick, who's supposed to take off from their job or business to go pick up your kid from school and take care of them? You both can't do that and talking about you being career oriented. Somebody's career is gonna tank, or you're both gonna lose. That's why I said there can only be one breadwinner. Who that is, you guys got to come up with that decision. But the second person, right? They don't have a career anymore. That becomes a job, and it needs to be flexible, especially when you're talking about kids. Now, if you guys aren't trying to have kids, then yeah, y'all got nothing but time. That stuff matters, right? You can both be. Yeah, that's the only time this whole power couple thing works out, when you're not having kids. The problem with that is that most men who want to get married, most marriage-minded men, they want kids. And most men, if kids are out of the picture, they're not looking to get married. So that's why I say this whole power couple thing, it's just like it doesn't exist. Because the minute most men want to get married, it's because they're saying that, okay, I want a family. The best outcome for my kids is if I get married, and we're going to do it like that. Kids are off the table. Most men don't want to get married. It's just not to those gentlemen. It's not worth the risk, you know? So where does that leave us? Well, it's going to leave us to press play, because I don't want to get off topic.
A woman role is needed. So now, just because you niggas can't afford it, then guess what? You get the motherfucker to slap you around. Step your game up. Or you get within your tribe, pour from the Waffle House, what you used to, the Hunter Court life, the roaches and cats. You get that. But don't get on here and say that it don't work. It actually works. I'm sorry.
I think that's disingenuous though, because nobody never said that it don't work. And once you throw kids in,
I'm not talking.
I know. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But look, once you throw kids in the mix, yeah, that changes the dynamics of it. What I'm talking about is this, bro. Mentally, this is how I picture this. Me and my woman get together. Let's say Shantae, the only one who ain't married. Me and Shantae meet each other. Let's say we're younger though, right? We meet each other. Right at this point, she's a grown woman. She been out taking care of herself. I'm a grown man. I've been out taking care of myself. We get together. We say, look, we're gonna do this thing, right? We get married. We're gonna build. I got a video that encapsulates this, and unfortunately, it's a black woman with a white man. They was together in high school, 17 years old, right? Do you know how old they was when they had their first kid? 27. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. We had these conversations like you meet the girl on Monday, you marry her on Tuesday, she had a baby on Wednesday. Bro, can we talk about this genuinely? She met the dude that was in high school. She do a whole roll of their history. 17 years old, they was together. They didn't get married until after she graduated college. It was 6 years later before they even got married.
But he was a white guy. It was still guy. So they like to eat pussy. They don't like to slay guys. So that's
hold on. Please don't deflect from this, because this is important. I know you got your jokes, but hold on, this is important, right? Because this is how you're supposed to do it. You get with somebody and you build something. Let's use the word infrastructure. You get with them and you build something first before you run off and just start having kids and all this other stuff. Yeah. Because now, right, when they start having kids later, guess what? Now it makes sense for there to only be technically one income in the house.
You know, I've spoke about this a lot of times. One of the problems that's presented in our community that's preventing us from moving forward or rebuilding is the concept of marriage. What I mean by that is that we're pushing it off too far. Most of the time we don't think about it. I think the average age in our community for marriage is close to 30, when it actually should be a lot like what he's talking about. It should be closer to 25, because at that point, you and your spouse have time to work on the foundation of your relationship. right? Give yourself a couple of years, and then work on the relationship, and then you can add kids into the mix. But because the foundation is solid, it makes things go a lot smoother. Where the alternative is doing like things are now. You wait until 30, and then when you do get married, now y'all instantly got to have kids because you're up against geriatric pregnancy and not being able to have any. So you're rushing to get that done. Meanwhile, your foundation got cracks in it, and all you're doing is building on a cracked foundation. And then in 5 years, now y'all talking about divorce and having to split up the family and child support and alimony and all this negative stuff because you didn't build you built a house on a bad foundation. You didn't have enough time for y'all to get to know each other better, or work out the dynamics, or how we relate this to what the topic is that, okay, y'all didn't have time to figure out, okay, who's going to be the breadwinner? Which one of us is going to be focused on family? Now, notice, again, I did not say who's the leader in that relationship because it's overwhelmingly both parties would prefer the man to be the leader. You just got to have, now that means that the man needs to have good leadership skills, ladies. This leads to another problem in our community because the vetting process is broken. We're not going to fault women for that. I'm going to fault men because the reality is that women they do a poor job of vetting men anyway, vetting husbands, potential husbands. This is where we as men have to step up and figure out, okay, why are we not privy to these conversations with potential husbands? Why is it that the woman does not trust, my daughter does not trust me enough to bring this guy to me so that I can start vetting him? That's a whole nother video. We're not going to get into that, right? But the main point we're talking about here is that, yeah, you need some kind of structure for building a family. Those things are important, people. We got to do a better job of doing that. But in order to, I get it, look, a lot of these topics are connected. In order for us to actually start looking at marriage as a viable option under the age of 25, that means that we have to have the vetting process in place, because that'll remove a lot of the fear that comes along with men giving commitment for a lifetime. Because a lot of times we say, well, we're too young and I can't do this, and women don't want to do it because they don't want to get trapped in a relationship with the wrong guy. A lot of these topics are connected. We just got to do a better job of it.
They probably have investments, savings, all kind of things set up so that it's not a strain on the man. So he doesn't have to commit 16 hours a day to work. He can actually take some time to be a father too. Because whether y'all believe it or not, a lot of men want to be fathers. A lot of men want to really be in a kid's life. A lot of men don't want to have to be at work 12, 14 hours a day. Some of them want to watch their kids grow up. We want to have the time to throw the football around with our sons too, or do daddy-daughter days with our daughters on our shoulders, and don't want to be in the house with our kids and still only be weekend dads. But see, that's not important. Just make sure you get the bag and you pay for everything so the woman don't have to do nothing. That's the most important thing. Like I said, they was together for 10 years before they even had a kid.
Little podcast.
That's how you do that. So this is my point about this, is that when we speak about it, we saying things like, oh, you ain't got the bag yet. Well, guess what? Most men don't when they 25. Most men don't when they 30, right? That's changing now because of tech and this and that and increased wages.
No, it's
you know
not.
what I'm saying?
No,
but that's why the dynamic of the relationship is so important, regardless of the money. Because if I get with you young, I'm 24, you 22, and you ain't willing to build right now, you think right now I deserve to be able to sit on my ass. I ain't got no kids. Right? I ain't got nothing going on, but because I'm a woman, I deserve to not have to do nothing except for wash some dishes. No, that's not how that works. You got to be willing to build with somebody, and you got to be willing to accept that if you just now get into that mindset at 35, you still got to build. At 45, you still got to build. You're not going to walk into some man's situation and just have him take you out of the responsibility of working or providing. That's just not how that's going to work. You ain't going to qualify for it.
Okay, so I think that what people were looking at was your age. I don't think they were they weren't talking about a 23-year-old, a 24-year-old when I was making that discussion. So I think that I agree with you. I think ideally you should, and I know people push back on that. They say, no, you need to get his money up. I've always said, I said it last week, I do think that the perfect time is to get a person who is of like minds, and you guys build kind of like you say, and you stick with that person and y'all go, ideally that is the situation.
Yep.
But I think that when we were discussing the information a few minutes ago, what a 23-year-old and 24-year-old, even up to a 30-year-old looks like, is totally different from a 40-year-old. If you still trying to get your shit together and you is still living like a 23-year-old at 40.
That happens a lot because most people just work jobs.
Yeah.
You say what?
That happens a lot because most people just work jobs. Most people don't have investments and S&P 500s and all this other different stuff going on. Like if you're a single person, you're gonna have a single mindset, right? You're gonna right now.
Okay. So while he is correct, the difference is that you can 100% plan for things like that. I'll give you an example. Guy's single. Okay, look, let's start it here. I live in the great state of Georgia, right? The average man makes $37,000 a year. The average woman makes $25,000. Now, if you follow these relationship channels, that's lower than what everybody talks about, right? Where the average man makes $50K. I urge you to go look at the average income for a man in your state. Most states do not have men who are averaging $50,000 a year. Most states, the average income for a man is less than 40. So what are we talking about here? Because you got to remember, what is true in those statistics is that most men don't reach their earning potential until they're past 40. So depending on when you get married, yeah, you see where I'm going with this? You have to be able to adjust. You need a plan first off, how your life is going to go, and said plan can need adjusting every so often. So you make a plan for when you're a single man to get your life together. Now you may experience some setbacks, and it may not happen until you're 40. Now I agree with Shan in the sense that you're not going to be able to do a traditional marriage at that point. You're not. But that doesn't mean you still can't get married, right? That just means that you're going to have to come up with a way of balancing the relationship out that's probably going to be a little different than if you'd got married at, let's say, 27. Number one, because a lot of things are different there. Because you've already passed geriatric pregnancy, so depending on if you're marrying a woman of similar age, kids may be off the table, or you may be coming into a situation where you're combining households. So the dynamic there is going to be a little different. I think that one of the biggest problems in our community is, again, we lack the examples of how to make specific relationships work. This is why I always say, we need more married people making content, because so we can see different examples of family dynamics. The high level conversation here is that, because this is almost, well, let's go ahead and end it, and I'll come back with the summary.
There was a statistic that came out that said the percentage of single women in a certain age demographic, it was something 20 something or 30 something, right? The percentage of single women in the same demographic as men, they were purchasing houses at a higher rate than men. Because men, like, I'm gonna go get the house because I got a family, I got a wife, I got kids. I need to get this space for them. But in general, I got a 1-bedroom apartment with a reading nook that I use as my bedroom because they got a real closet in there. And I use my bedroom as my office. I'm cool with this for the rest of my life if I don't got no family and no kids that I gotta. I don't need 5,300 square feet.
Yeah. And that speaks to my point about, you come up with a plan for your life, and then often, a plan can be adjusted for, if and when you get married. So what's the high level conversation here? Ultimately, there are several social constructs that are broken in our community that we need to take a serious look at repairing so that before we can start to build. Marriage being one, and then under the guise that we're pushing it off too far. Should be looking to get married younger so that it gives you time to build a foundation before you start adding kids into the mix. Because once you do add kids in the mix, things get chaotic again. But the plan can be adjusted depending on how good your foundation is. The worse off your foundation is, the longer it's going to take you to make adjustments, and the bigger those adjustments are going to have to be. That's why a lot of times we don't make it as a people, because our divorce rate is so high. It's because we just didn't make a plan for how we wanted our life to go. So we need to work on getting married sooner. But in order to do that, we've got to alleviate some of the fear that comes in with making that long of a commitment that early. How do we do that? We improve the vetting process, right? Now, one of the reasons why the vetting process is what it is because we haven't done a good job of raising our kids, particularly our daughters, because for the most part, our daughters do not trust the men in their family in order to pick the right guy for them. That's why a lot of times, our women will keep picking they keep picking bad. You want evidence of this? Why is the divorce rate so high in our community? But yet we have the lowest rate of married people in the country. Because we're not picking right. We make bad selections, right? So we've got three categories right off the top that if we want to start building, we need to improve on. We need to get married sooner. We need to fix the vetting process. And we need to do a better job of raising our kids to actually trust the opposite gender. Great conversation, guys. We're going to leave it here. Like I said, check out the channel is called The Lapeef Experience. The show is called She Critique. Usually it's hosted by ladies, and they're doing a good job. They always have high-level conversations. That's why we're going to be back here again. Matter of fact, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to say goes to the next time. Peace.